Good afternoon, students. Hello. So this new course here, Career Planning and Development for BBA 322. My name is Mr. Ali Afeefi. I am from United Arab Emirates. I'll be covering this course with you for this semester. So this would be the summary of our course. The full class is 1 hour and 30 minutes. But this presentation, I will only give the summary of the course itself. So maximum it will be around 20 minutes or less. If you want to know all the details about this classes, you have to attend the class to learn more about it. Let's start. So of table of content, I will have introduction, class instructions, 4 type of career planning, that would be the homework as well, dead jobs, path of economy, and next week homework. So basically in this course we're going to study 4 different type of career planning. They are vocations, hobby, work, and career. And this is actually the homework that I give the students, and please all of you have to write your homework. It should be, each item have to be 250 words, so in total 1000 words, and have to be handwritten with pencil, and you have to give me in hand. So please make sure you mention the cover page, your name, your ID, the name of the course, and the name of the homework, which basically it is the first homework. And I wanted to make it more personalized. So what's vocation to you? Basically vocation is what's your occupation, what is your job, like how do you define yourself? That's a vocation, your profession. Second, hobby is something that you can do for enjoyment, entertainment, without any monetary gain. So you do it for fun, but there is no money you get from it. Work basically is a job, that's something you do, a task you finish, in exchange you get a salary. The last one is a career. You have to explain to me what do you want to do as a career path, what things that you want to do to achieve your final goal as building your career. So these 4 things you have to mention 250 words for each item, and to a maximum it have to be 1000 words. This is your first homework, so please submit to me as soon as possible. So on the next page, I'm going to explain about dead jobs. So these jobs existed almost in the last 100 years. It had a meaning at that time, but it's no longer have value. So this job here, it's called pinsters. Basically, pinsters is when you go to bowling. Now mostly all the bowlings are in shopping malls, I will assume. So when you go bowling, now it's more automated. There is a machine that actually takes the ball from when you throw it and send it all the way to the beginning. At the olden days, 100 years ago, they did not have that. So at that time, they usually will hire young boys, usually maximum around the age 15, 16 years old or younger, to work there. So they will have one supervisor who will be like monitoring them, and they have to be at the end of the hole, so they can actually arrange the pinsters when the ball hit it, so they arrange it by themselves. There is no machine to do that. Usually, of course, this is now illegal because this is considered to be a child labor. At the time, that was not a problem. And this is in New York, in Brooklyn, 1910. The second job that is dead now, even if some people are still doing it, it does not mean it's still alive. It's actually dead jobs that eventually it will extinct. It will no longer be available. So this is a water carrier from India, and basically this image, basically at the time, and there are some people in India at the moment in villages, they don't have access to water, especially in very remote areas. Usually in India, most places in India, of course they do have access to water, electricity, and basic facilities, but still there are some parts of India they lack the basic necessity for decent living. So this is a picture of person who basically would get fresh water, clean water, drinkable water, and he would go around the village and sell that water to people. So this job basically is a dead job. It's no longer available, and if it's available, it'd be like very few people do it in whole India. The third job is a clock keeper. So this is a clock keeper who is in London fixing the Big Ben. Big Ben is one of the tallest and biggest clocks in the world, and one of the biggest and most iconic tourism destination in London, the Big Ben. So basically at the time they needed somebody who would go up all the way to the clock tower to fix it in case if it need repairs or maintenance of the clock tower in regular basis. However, this job is no longer available because it's either became automated, there's a machine to do it, they changed the mechanism of the full clock, and if they still maintain it, usually the person who works there is an engineer, a professional person who would go there because it's hazard, there's a risk for injury over there. So a person would go there to fix it. So this person now is a professional, and usually he is an engineer who works to fix this issue. So this is one of the jobs that no longer available, clock keeper. The next job is projectionist. A projectionist basically a person who would go behind a machine and will roll a film and keep rolling the film. So for people to watch a film, to watch a movie. So nowadays in cinema, it became fully automated. They have a machine that does this job. They don't need a human to operate it. So this picture is in 1930s. At that time, it was a very interesting time economically because that time was an era in economy considered to be or called Deep Depression, which basically it was the worst economic crisis happened around the world and especially in the US. Next is a bookseller. So bookseller, usually in US, they had so many different people who would go door to door to sell items, merchandise, games, clothes, whatever. And even here in Bangladesh, you would have some people would go door to door, especially in villages. They sell items which they got from the city. So in 1950s, usually that was a very common job that somebody from middle class would do it, or lower middle class would do this job. And still in some central states in America, middle states in America, they still have this to this day, but it's actually in decline. People now, they can order books online, or basically they go to libraries or read books electronically. So they don't really need to have a physical book. But if they need a book, now almost in every small town in America, they do have a public library. So they don't actually need to buy books. But until now, some of them they do it, and people want to have vintage books, old books. It's still a trend. Some people like to collect books. So the bookseller is somebody would people perceive in a good way, other than other people who go door to door. But this is one of the profession that is dying or almost dead now. The other one is early human computers at NASA. So if you see this picture, most of the picture here you see almost all of them are women. The reason is because it's interesting that this picture was taken especially like when the American had a problem in early stages when they started NASA. So most men, they used to be at war. They could not actually come to office because they were in front lines. But the one who left behind are the women who actually had to work as computers. They have to think how the computer work, and they have to use programs and so on. It's all by their brain. So they have to be very super good in math and physics to do these jobs. Okay, so this was basically very time-consuming job. Later on, of course, it was replaced with computer. So those people are no longer needed because there always will be human error. No matter how much the person is talented, especially with dealing with numbers, there's always be blind spots. There will be always weak points. A computer can't prevent these errors. So these are the jobs is no longer available. Another one is a knockup in London. So basically in 1920s, during Deep Depression, this is before Deep Depression started. So usually those people are considered to be hard labor. So those people at that time, people did not have watches or clocks to wake up, an alarm. Okay, most of you now would have an alarm in their phones. So they can set up a timing, they can wake up a certain time, whatever they want, in 24 hours. And before that, you would have like a small clock at your house. Most people had it. But during this time, that era in London, people didn't have the privilege that we have nowadays. So they had to hire somebody to walk in London City and knock the windows of people to wake them up. So basically those people would be up the whole night and to make sure that people wake up on time and they can go to their work on time. So buying a watch or a clock is not everybody can purchase at the time. So these jobs are no longer available, it's no longer there because it was replaced by electronic gadgets, electronic items and watches, smartwatches, and basically, clocks. Next is radio actors. Okay, so basically radio actors, people who would act by voice acting. It was a very big trend in 1940s and before that as well. So this is almost a dead profession. You would not see people who would act as voice. So when I say, radio actors is different than TV actors, different than theater actors, different than cinema actors. Radio actors will act a full scene by voice because at the time people used to listen to radio more than TV. Not everybody could afford TV, and usually TV would come in black and white. So radio, it was something that people would listen to know the news around the world. So in this picture is a very famous lady. She former actress and she's the wife of a former president of Argentina. So this is a dead job, it's no longer available. Another one is a switchboard operators. As you can see here also, most of them are women because these are required to have, I would say it's more like soft skills. Okay, they're not hard labor, they are soft labors, I would call. But most of them are women. So the thing is, in the past, in the olden days, people have to call telephone from, let's say, London to New York or London to Paris or London to somewhere else. It's not as fast as nowadays. Nowadays you will use, different application to call somebody, or you would call from the internet that you can reach someone. It's fine, but at that time people actually had to connect wires from, one place to another. So it was not an easy job, and people sometimes get, they start to speak at the wrong person eventually if a mistake happened during the whole line. And it would take some time to connect people because they would do it manually. Okay, so at the time, this one, the switchboard operator, basically they will listen to the whole conversation. This picture was taken in Manchester, so if you call from Manchester to London, they have this one. If you call from Manchester to another city in Europe, they have that one as well. It will take more people for communication for the call to reach from its initial stage to its final stage. There will be so many people, so many of them, they will switch boards so you can have a normal conversation with a human being from another part of the planet. So path of economy. So basically one of the things that I described here in the class from 1920 to 2020, there were two major economic factors that contributed in the whole economy of the world. The first one is labor. The second one is production. In the last 100 years, this was basically the two major economies. With labor, I would explain it's actually human capacity. There are soft labors and hard labors. So labors basically, when I say soft labor, you are a skilled person who would work with computers, who would work in certain profession. In later classes, you will see more details about it. Hard labors are basically the construction people, the people who have to use physically, you need to use your body to operate something, a machine, a factory, etc. So that's actually the human capacity. The second one is production. So many countries, they do have one of these two or both of them. So it can be garment, it can be oil, rice, precious minerals, fruits, vegetables. It can be in any field, in any industry. Production is like producing something in a mass quantity. Labor is basically human capacity or human capital that you could export people to go abroad. They could work and send money back home, and the country flourish. So that's the two things that happened from 1920 to 2020. So after 2020, these two things will decline. We will see a trend of declining of labor and production around the world. By 2030, it's been said that 85% of jobs will be available by 2030. That's how many years from now? 8 years almost? 7 years soon. So by 2030, 85% jobs that will be available at that time is not yet created. So we actually don't know what kind of job will be available in 2030. We know some of them, but the 85% we have no idea what it would be. So as much as possible, you have to try to be more flexible in your career choice, in your jobs, in your occupation, and something that gives you flexibility to change your industry if you decide to change your career path. So you have to be more flexible. Don't be in a job or a career that does not have a future, because if you reach there, that's the maximum what you can do. But if you are in a possibility to change, then you have a possibility to divert. Like instead of doing one thing, you can do something else. It's easier for you to switch your career. So make sure to think through it. What do you want to do actually as a job or as a career path? So for your homework, for your first assignment, you have to write these 4 things: vocation, hobby, work, and career, and make it personalized. So I want to know, what is your vocation? How do you describe yourself? What is your profession? And you have to write 250 words. If you're not working, what actually you're hoping to do, what you're striving to do. If you're working and studying at the same time, vocation is like, what do you want to do in the future? What do you want to describe yourself at? Hobby, as I mentioned before, it's something that you do for leisure, but without any monetary ends. Okay, there is no money to make from hobby. Something hobby that you have, like, what is your hobby? What do you do to enjoy your time as a leisure time? Something that you do for fun, but you don't actually earn money by it. Third is work. What is your work in general? If you're not working, what kind of jobs that you're planning to have, and how that will contribute into your growth, if you can. Last is career. So what is career to you? Career, basically everybody, they don't have to have a career. You either have a career or you don't have it at all. It's up to you. It's a personal choice. But if you decide to have a career, what do you actually want to do in next 10, 20, 30 years? How do you want to define yourself? In what field you're going to be? In what industry you're going to be? Okay, is it in Bangladesh or it's out of Bangladesh? So that's the whole point of this assignment. Make it personalized. 250 per items. You have to mention 250 words. You have to write it by hand in pencil, please, and submit it to me as soon as possible. So that's the end of the first class. Thank you very much, everybody. If you have any questions, please email me, or you would see me in school or university. You may ask me about it. Thank you very much.